6 months ago, he made an impossible choice. Took control of his father's empire. Became the undisputed king of the underworld. Built walls so high even love couldn't reach him. She took their sons and disappeared. Again. But empires built on blood don't grant peace, and the consequences of power always return. Now someone is hunting his children, someone who knows his secrets, someone from inside his own organization, and the only person who can help him save his sons is the woman who swore she'd never forgive him. This is part 2, The Reckoning, where kings learn that some thrones cost more than power. They cost everything you'd die to protect. Hello everyone, welcome back. If you're here for part 2, that means part 1 touched your heart, and I'm so grateful. Before we continue this powerful journey, please help me reach 1,000 subscribers by clicking that subscribe button. Your support keeps these stories alive. Now, let's see what happens when a king must choose between his throne and his family one last time. 6 months, 183 days since Min-jae last saw his sons' faces. He counted every single one. The empire was his now, completely, absolutely. His father's organization had been dismantled and rebuilt in Min-jae's image. Cleaner operations, strategic alliances, less blood, more influence. He'd done exactly what he promised, taken control to make things safer. But the throne felt like ice beneath him. His penthouse was emptier than ever. 40 stories above a city he controlled but couldn't enjoy. Floor-to-ceiling windows that showed him everything except what mattered. Min-jae stood at those windows now, whiskey in hand, watching dawn break over the skyline. He hadn't slept. Again. Sleep meant dreams. Dreams meant seeing Su-min's face when he'd chosen the coup over her trust. Seeing his sons sleeping peacefully, unaware their father was becoming exactly what their mother feared. His phone buzzed. Taeho's name flashed on the screen. "Talk to me," Min-jae answered. "We have a problem." Taeho's voice was tight, controlled, the way it got when things were bad. The surveillance team in Queens just reported movement. 3 men. Professional, watching the old apartment building. Min-jae's blood went cold. She's not there anymore. They don't know that. But boss. Taeho paused. They're ours, or they were, Lee's crew. The ones who wouldn't accept your leadership after the transition. The whiskey glass shattered against the floor. Lee Jun-seo, his father's former lieutenant. The one who'd disappeared 3 months ago with a dozen loyal men. The one Min-jae had been hunting through every shadow and whisper in the underworld. How did they find the address? Min-jae's voice was deadly calm. That's the problem. Only 5 people knew about that apartment. You, me, and 3 others I'd trust with my life. Someone talked, or someone's been watching you longer than we thought. Min-jae was already moving, grabbing his jacket, his gun, the burner phone he kept for emergencies. Pull everyone. I want eyes on every location she might be, every friend, every family member, every place she's ever mentioned. Boss, we don't know where she is. She went dark after. Then find her. Min-jae's control cracked. Find her before they do. Because if Lee gets to my sons, if he puts one finger on them. Understood. The line went dead. Min-jae stood in his empty penthouse, surrounded by the empire he'd built. The power he'd claimed, the throne he'd sacrificed everything to possess. And none of it mattered. None of it could protect the 3 little boys who called him daddy. None of it could undo the choice that had driven their mother away. He'd become king to keep them safe. But kings made enemies, and enemies always found the crown's weakness. 20 minutes later, Min-jae sat in an underground office 3 blocks from his legitimate business headquarters. This room didn't exist on any blueprint. The dozen men gathered here didn't exist in any database. These were his ghosts, his shadows. The ones who did the work that even a crime lord couldn't acknowledge. Lee Jun-seo has gone rogue, Min-jae said without preamble. He's hunting for leverage against me. And he's found it. The men exchanged glances. They knew Min-jae had secrets. Everyone did. But the nature of those secrets. I have a family, Min-jae continued. His voice steady despite the fear clawing at his throat. A wife, 3 sons, 5 years old. They've been hidden, protected, separate from all of this. But Lee knows about the apartment in Queens, which means he's been tracking me, watching, waiting. Taeho stepped forward. We've already increased surveillance on known Lee associates. But he's smart, boss. He won't surface until he has what he wants. Then we make him surface. Min-jae pulled up a map on the screen behind him. Lee needs money, resources. He can't run a rebellion on loyalty alone. He's hitting our operations, small ones, untraceable, to fund his movement. So we give him a target too good to resist. A trap, one of the men said. A trap, Min-jae confirmed. We leak information about a major cash shipment, $250,000, moving through Brooklyn tomorrow night. Light security, easy target. He won't be able to resist. And when he shows up, we take him alive. Min-jae's eyes were ice. I need to know who else knows about my family. Who helped him find that address? Who else is a threat? The men nodded. This was the work they understood. Violence with purpose. Blood for protection. But Taeho lingered after the others left. You need to contact her, he said quietly. Warn her, even if she doesn't want to hear from you. I've tried. Min-jae's voice cracked. Every day for 6 months. Calls, messages, letters sent to dead drops. She's completely ghost. Either she's gotten very good at hiding, or don't. Taeho cut him off. Don't finish that sentence. She's alive, and she's keeping those boys safe. You know her. She wouldn't let anything happen to them. Min-jae wanted to believe that. Needed to believe it. But 6 months of silence was a long time. 6 months of not knowing if they were safe, if they were happy, if his sons remembered him, or if Soo-min had erased him from their lives completely. There's something else, Taeho said. The surveillance team said one of Lee's men was carrying a photo. They couldn't see details, but it means he has more than just an address. Min-jae's hands curled into fists. He has images, proof, something concrete. We'll find him. We'll end this. And if we don't? If he gets to them first? Taeho met his gaze steadily. Then we burn the world down until we get them back. It should have been comforting. Instead, it just reminded Min-jae of what he'd become. A man who solved problems with fire. A king who ruled through fear. A father who'd chosen power over presence. Set the trap, Min-jae said finally. And Taeho? When we catch Lee? Yes, boss. Make sure he understands that some lines, once crossed, don't have a way back. Taeho smiled. It wasn't pleasant. Understood. That night, Min-jae returned to the penthouse and did something he hadn't done in months. He went to the guest room, the one he'd started preparing 6 months ago, before everything fell apart, before the coup, before Soo-min left. 3 small beds lined one wall, still wrapped in plastic, never used. Toy boxes sat unopened in the corner, books stacked on shelves, a nightlight shaped like a star plugged into the wall, waiting to guide small feet through darkness. He'd built them a kingdom within his kingdom, a safe space in the heart of his empire. But they'd never seen it, never slept in those beds or read those books, or felt that warm glow in the night. Min-jae sat on the floor between the empty beds and finally, let himself break. 6 months of holding together. 6 months of being the king. 6 months of pretending power was enough. And it shattered. He cried like he hadn't since he was a child. Ugly. Raw. Broken. Because somewhere out there his sons were in danger. And the woman he loved had every right to never let him near them again. I'm sorry, he whispered to the empty room. I'm so sorry. I thought I was protecting you. I thought control meant safety. I thought... His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Min-jae's heart stopped. He answered. Hello? Silence. Then breathing. Small. Frightened. Daddy? Ji-hoon's voice. His brave, stubborn, perfect son. Ji-hoon? Min-jae's voice cracked. Baby, where are you? Are you safe? Is mommy? Men came to our house. Ji-hoon was whispering, trying to be brave. Mommy told us to hide. But I took her phone. I remembered your number. You said if we ever needed you. I'm coming. Min-jae was already moving, already calling Tae-ho on another line, already becoming the weapon he'd spent 6 months sharpening. Stay hidden. Stay quiet. Don't come out for anyone except Mommy. Do you understand? I'm scared. I know, baby, I know. But Daddy's coming. And no one is going to hurt you. Promise? Min-jae thought about all the promises he'd broken, all the times he'd chosen wrong, all the ways he'd failed. I promise, he said. Now tell me where you are. And as Ji-hoon whispered an address, a safe house 3 hours north, Min-jae felt something shift inside him. The king died. The father awakened. And God help anyone who stood between him and his sons. The car tore through the night like a bullet. Min-jae drove himself. No driver, no entourage. Just him and the loaded gun in the passenger seat, and 3 hours of dark highway between him and his children. Tae-ho had protested, called it reckless, suicidal. Min-jae didn't care. His son had called, had been brave enough to reach out when he was terrified. And Min-jae would drive through hell itself to get to him. The address Ji-hoon had given led to a small town upstate, rural, quiet. The kind of place where strangers were noticed and questions were asked. Smart. Soo-min had always been smart. She'd hidden them in plain sight. Built a life in a place so normal, so ordinary, that no one would think to look there for the family of a crime lord. Min-jae's phone buzzed. Tae-ho. Team is 10 minutes behind you. Wait for backup. No. Boss. If Lee's people are there, 10 minutes is a lifetime. I'm going in. Then at least let me guide you. I've pulled satellite images. The house is isolated. 2-story, single access road. If they're watching, you'll be exposed. Send me the layout. His phone pinged. Images loaded. Tae-ho was right. The house sat alone at the end of a long driveway. Trees on 3 sides. Open field on the 4th. Defensible if you were inside. A kill box if you were approaching. There's a service road 1/2 mile east, Tae-ho said. Cuts through the woods. You can approach from behind. Stay in tree cover until you're close. Good. Have the team set up a perimeter when they arrive. No one gets in or out. And if the local police show up, handle it. Min-jae ended the call. 20 minutes later, he was on foot, moving through the woods with the practiced silence of someone who'd done this before. The gun was comfortable in his hand. An old friend. A terrible companion. He'd promised Soo-min he'd try to be better. But better didn't save children. Monsters did. The house appeared through the trees. Lights off. No movement visible. Either everyone was hiding or... No. He couldn't think like that. Min-jae circled to the back. Found the door Tae-ho had mentioned. Unlocked. His stomach dropped. Soo-min would never leave a door unlocked, which meant someone else had opened it. He entered silently. The house was small, neat. The kind of place that smelled like home. Cooking and laundry and children's laughter. Family photos on the walls. His sons at a park, at a beach. Growing up in moments he'd never witnessed. The living room was empty. Kitchen, clear. Stairs leading up. A floorboard creaked above him. Min-jae moved. Fast. Weapon raised. Every sense heightened. The second floor had 3 bedrooms. 2 bathrooms. He cleared each room with mechanical precision. Empty. All empty. His chest tightened. Where were they? Had Lee already taken them? Was he too late? Then he heard it. Breathing. Small. Controlled. Coming from the master bedroom closet. Min-jae approached slowly. Ji-hoon? It's Daddy. It's safe now. Silence. Baby, I know you're scared. But I need you to open the door. I need to see that you're okay. More silence. Then, how do I know you're really my daddy? Smart boy. Cautious. Soo-min had taught him well. Because I remember the first time we made pancakes together. You wanted chocolate chips and whipped cream, and I said yes to everything because I'd just met you and I wanted you to like me. Min-jae's voice softened. And you smiled and said, I like you. And it was the best thing anyone ever said to me. The closet door opened slowly. 3 small faces peered out. Frightened, hopeful, His sons, alive, safe, here. Min-jae's knees nearly gave out. Daddy! Taemin launched himself forward first, then Dae-jung, then Ji-hoon, trying to be brave but failing as tears streamed down his face. Min-jae caught them, all three, pulled them close and breathed them in, and felt something in his chest unlock for the first time in 6 months. You came, Ji-hoon whispered against his shoulder. Always, Min-jae promised. Always. Where's Mommy? Dae-jung asked. She told us to hide, and then she left and she didn't come back. Ice flooded Min-jae's veins. How long ago? I don't know. Long time. It was still light outside. Hours then. Soo-min had been gone for hours. Which meant his phone buzzed. Unknown number. Again. Min-jae answered, already knowing what he'd hear. Hello, Min-jae. Lee Jun-seo's voice was smooth, satisfied. Enjoying the family reunion? Where is she? Your lovely wife? Safe, for now. Quite beautiful, by the way. I can see why you risked everything to hide her. Min-jae's hand tightened on the phone. If you hurt her, you'll what? Kill me? You should have done that 6 months ago when you had the chance. But you got soft. Sentimental. Started thinking you could rule with mercy instead of fear. Lee laughed. Your father would be ashamed. My father is dead. Because you killed him. Because you chose power over principle. And now look at you. The great Min-jae. Brought to his knees by a woman and 3 brats. Tell me what you want. The Empire. Obviously. You stepped into a throne you didn't earn through proper channels. You took it through betrayal. Through patricide. The old families don't respect that. They're waiting for a real leader. They're waiting for you. They're waiting for strength, and you've shown nothing but weakness, disappearing for hours, distracted, divided. Lee's voice hardened. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to call a meeting, all the families, tomorrow night, and you're going to step down, publicly. Name me as your successor. And if I don't, then your wife's body washes up in the East River, piece by piece, while you explain to your sons why Mommy isn't coming home. The threat hung in the air like poison. Min-jae looked at his sons, 3 perfect little boys who trusted him, who believed he was a hero even though he was a monster. Where and when? He asked quietly. Smart man. I'll send details within the hour. Lee paused. Oh, and Min-jae, come alone. Any sign of your dogs and she dies screaming. Understood? Understood. The line went dead. Min-jae stood there, holding his sons, staring at the phone. 6 months ago, he'd chosen the Empire to protect his family. Now he had to choose again. The throne or Soo-min's life. Power or love. The king or the man. Tae-ho burst through the door, weapon drawn, team behind him. Boss, we've secured the perimeter. No sign of... He stopped when he saw the boys. Lowered his weapon. They're safe. For now, Min-jae said. But Soo-min isn't. He explained quickly. Lee's demands, the ultimatum, the meeting. It's a trap, Tae-ho said immediately. He's not going to let either of you walk out of there alive. I know. So we don't play his game. We find where he's holding her and we take her back by force. We don't have time. He said within the hour. That's not enough time to... Then we make time. Tae-ho stepped closer. Boss, listen to me. You didn't build this empire just to hand it to a traitor. You didn't survive your father just to die for Lee's ambition. There's always another way. Min-jae looked at his sons again. Ji-hoon stared back with eyes too old for his age. Mommy said you're very powerful, that you can do anything. I'm not... Are you going to save her? Such a simple question. Such an impossible answer. Because saving Soo-min meant walking into a trap. Meant possibly dying. Meant leaving his sons orphaned. But not saving her meant living with her blood on his hands. Meant his sons knowing their father let their mother die. Meant becoming exactly what he'd feared most. The man who chose power over everything. Yes, Min-jae said. I'm going to save her. Promise? He thought about all the promises he'd made. All the ones he'd broken. all the ways he'd failed to be the man they needed. "I promise," he whispered. And this time, he meant it. Even if keeping that promise cost him everything. The meeting place was an abandoned warehouse on the waterfront. Of course it was. Crime lords loved their dramatic settings, their symbolic locations. This particular warehouse had been owned by Min Jae's father, where he'd conducted business, where bodies had disappeared into the river. Lee was sending a message. Your father's empire, your father's methods, your father's fate. Min Jae approached alone as instructed. No backup visible, no weapons showing. Just a man walking into certain death because the alternative was unthinkable. But Taeho's team was out there, invisible, waiting. Min Jae had learned one thing from his father. Never fight fair when everything you love is on the line. The warehouse doors stood open. Light spilled from inside. Min Jae entered slowly, hands visible, eyes adjusting to the harsh fluorescent glare. Lee Jun-seo stood in the center of the space, older than Min Jae by 15 years, scarred, hardened, his father's generation. The kind of man who believed power came from fear, and blood was the only currency that mattered. And there, bound to a chair behind him, Soo-min. She was alive, bruised, terrified, but alive. Their eyes met across the warehouse, and Min Jae saw everything, her fear, her strength, her desperate hope that somehow this would end without more blood. "Right on time," Lee said. "I appreciate punctuality. Let her go." Min Jae's voice was steady. "I'm here. You have what you wanted. Release her and we'll talk." "Talk?" Lee laughed. "There's nothing to talk about. You're stepping down, naming me successor. Or she dies." Those were the terms. "And after? You think the families will just accept that? That Taeho and my loyalists will simply bow to you?" "They will when you order them to." Lee pulled a gun, pressed it to Soo-min's head. She flinched but didn't cry out. "You're going to call them right now. Tell them you're retiring, that I have your blessing. That anyone who opposes me opposes you. And then you'll kill us both anyway." "Maybe," Lee shrugged. "Or maybe I'll let her live. The kids too, hidden away somewhere. Your dirty little secret. As long as you disappear, leave the city, the country, never come back. You'd let me walk away? I'd let you run. There's a difference." Lee's smile was cruel. "Killing you makes you a martyr. But letting you slink away, broken, defeated, that makes you a coward. And nobody follows cowards." It was almost smart, almost strategic. Except Lee had made one critical mistake. He'd threatened Min Jae's family. And monsters didn't negotiate. They destroyed. "No," Min Jae said quietly. Lee's eyebrows rose. "No? No deal. No stepping down, no running." Min Jae took a step forward. "You're going to let her go, and then you're going to leave this city. Tonight. Because if you don't..." "You'll what?" Lee laughed. "You're in no position to make threats, boy. I have the gun. I have the hostage. I have the power. No." Min Jae smiled. It was his father's smile. Cold. Lethal. "You have a gun pointed at my wife, which means you have one bullet, one chance. And the second you fire it, whether you kill her or miss, you become a dead man. Your backup isn't here. I have men watching every entrance." "I know. Taeho took them out 12 minutes ago." Lee's expression shifted, uncertainty creeping in. "Rooftop positions," Min Jae continued calmly. 3 snipers. They've had you in their sights since I walked through that door. The man to your left, the one you think is loyal. He's been on my payroll for 2 months. So is the woman by the south entrance. So are half the men you thought were yours." "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Min Jae pulled out his phone, pressed a button. Red laser dots appeared on Lee's chest. 3 of them. Perfect. Lethal. Lee's face went pale. "Here's what's actually going to happen," Min Jae said. "You're going to lower that gun, slowly. You're going to step away from my wife. And then you're going to tell me who else knows about my family. Who helped you find them. Who else is a threat. And if I don't, then my sons lose their mother. And I lose the only thing keeping me human. Min-jae's voice dropped to a whisper. Which means I have nothing left to lose. No mercy left to show. No reason to be the better man. So ask yourself, Lee, do you really want to see what I become when everything I love is taken away? The warehouse was silent. Just breathing. Heartbeats. The hum of fluorescent lights. Lee looked at the laser sights on his chest. At Min-jae's cold expression. At Soo-min's terrified face. And slowly, so slowly, he lowered the gun. Smart choice, Min-jae said. Then everything happened at once. Lee spun, tried to grab Soo-min, use her as a shield. Min-jae moved faster, crossed the distance between them like lightning, caught Lee's wrist, twisted. The gun clattered to the floor. They fought. Brutal. Close. Two men who knew how to kill with their hands. But Lee was older, slower, and Min-jae was fighting for more than power. He was fighting for family, for love, for the chance to be a father his sons could be proud of. Min-jae's fist connected with Lee's jaw. Once, twice, 3 times. Lee went down and didn't get up. Tae-ho and the team stormed in, secured the space, pulled Lee's remaining loyalists into custody. But Min-jae ignored all of it. He went to Soo-min, cut her bonds with shaking hands, pulled her into his arms and held her like she might disappear if he let go. I'm sorry, he whispered into her hair. I'm so sorry. I should have protected you better. Should have found you sooner. Should have... You came, she interrupted. Her voice was hoarse, raw. You could have chosen the Empire, could have let him kill me to keep your throne. But you came. I'll always come. She pulled back, looked at him with eyes full of tears and something else. Something fragile and precious and almost like hope. The boys? She asked. Safe, with Tae-ho's most trusted people, waiting for their mother. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. I thought I lost them, thought I'd failed them. You saved them. By hiding, by calling me, by being brave enough to trust that I'd changed. Have you? She searched his face. Changed? Min-jae thought about the Empire waiting outside these walls, the throne he'd built, the power he'd claimed. 6 months ago, he would have said yes and meant it. But now, I don't know, he admitted. I'm still the man who runs this empire. Still the one who makes decisions that cost lives. Still your father's son in too many ways. But I'm also their father, your husband. The man who would burn everything I've built if it meant keeping you safe. He cupped her face gently. So maybe I haven't changed. Maybe I've just finally figured out what's worth protecting. Soo-min closed her eyes, leaned into his touch. And for the first time in 6 months, Min-jae let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, there was a path forward. One where he could be both the king and the father, the monster and the man, the power and the love. Take me to our sons, Soo-min whispered. So he did. And when they walked out of that warehouse together, alive, whole, united, Min-jae realized something profound. Some thrones were worth sitting on, and some empires were built not on fear or blood or power, but on the 3 little boys waiting to see their parents come home, on the woman who'd risked everything to protect them, on the love that survived even when everything else burned. That was an empire worth ruling. That was a throne worth keeping. And Min-jae would defend it until his last breath. The safe house was quiet when they arrived. Dawn painted the sky in soft pinks and golds. The kind of morning that promised new beginnings, fresh starts, second chances. Min-jae helped Soo-min out of the car. She was limping slightly, her ankle twisted during the struggle, but she refused assistance beyond his steadying hand. Still stubborn, still strong, still his. Tae-ho met them at the door. The boys are asleep. Finally. Took 3 stories and a promise that you were coming back. Lee? Min-jae asked. Secured. We're extracting information about his network. Should have a complete list of conspirators by morning. Tae-ho paused. What do you want done with him? 6 months ago, Min-jae would have answered without hesitation. Death. Quick or slow depending on his mood. That's what his father would have done. What the Empire expected. but Sumin's hand tightened in his. A silent plea. Prison, Min-jae said finally. Federal. Maximum security. I want him alive to see everything he tried to build crumble. I want him to know he failed. Taeho's expression flickered with surprise, but he nodded. Understood, boss. They entered the house together. Min-jae led Sumin upstairs to the bedroom, where 3 small forms lay tangled in blankets. Ji-hoon in the middle, arms around his brothers like even in sleep he was protecting them. Sumin made a small broken sound, rushed forward, gathered all 3 into her arms. They woke slowly, confused. Then, Mommy, Taemin's voice was pure joy. You're okay, Daejung was crying. Happy tears, relief tears. Ji-hoon just held on, face buried in her shoulder, little body shaking with sobs he'd been too brave to release before. Min-jae watched from the doorway, an outsider to this moment, this reunion. But then Ji-hoon looked up, saw him standing there. Daddy kept his promise, the boy said to his mother. He saved you. Sumin's eyes met Min-jae's across the room. Something passed between them, unspoken, complicated, heavy with history and hope. Yes, she whispered. He did. Does that mean he can stay? Taemin asked. Can Daddy live with us now? The question hung in the air like smoke. Min-jae's chest tightened. He wanted to say yes, wanted to promise them everything, but he'd learned the hard way that promises meant nothing without action. That's up to your mother, he said quietly. Sumin studied him for a long moment, then stood, crossed to him, took his hand. Can we talk? She asked. Privately. They left the boys with Taeho, who looked completely terrified at the prospect of babysitting but hid it well, and walked to the back porch. The sunrise was full now. Beautiful. The kind of morning that felt like forgiveness. 6 months, Sumin said. 6 months of silence, of hiding, of believing you'd chosen power over us. I know. And then tonight, you risked everything. Walked into a trap. Could have died. She turned to face him. Why? Because they're my sons. You're my wife. And I was wrong. The confession tore out of him. 6 months ago, I thought control meant safety. That if I ruled the empire, I could eliminate the threats. But I was just becoming another threat. Another monster. Another man who chose power over love. And now? Now I know better. Power doesn't protect family. Love does. Being present does. Choosing them. Choosing you. Every single day. That's what keeps people safe. He stepped closer. I can't undo the coup. Can't bring back the time I lost with them. But I can be different going forward. I can be the father they deserve. The husband you needed 6 years ago. Can you? Her voice was soft. Careful. Can you really walk away from the empire? From the violence? From everything your father built? No, Min-jae admitted. I can't walk away completely. The empire exists. My enemies exist. But I can change how I rule. Dismantle the worst parts. Build something cleaner. Something that doesn't require me to sacrifice my soul to keep it running. That sounds impossible. Probably is. He smiled sadly. But I'm willing to try. For them. For you. For the man I see reflected in Ji-hoon's eyes when he looks at me like I'm a hero instead of a monster. Sumin was quiet for a long moment. Then, I have conditions. Hope flared in Min-jae's chest. Anything. We don't live in your penthouse. We keep our own place. Separate. Safe. The boys don't grow up surrounded by bodyguards and bulletproof glass. Agreed. You don't bring business home. Ever. When you're with us, you're just Min-jae. Just daddy. Not the crime lord. Not the king. Agreed. And when, I see you slipping back into old patterns. When the empire starts taking more than it gives. When I see that darkness winning. Her voice cracked. I take the boys and we leave. For real this time. No second chances. No more hoping you'll change. I understand. Do you? She stepped closer. Because this is it, Min-jae. This is the last time I gamble on us. The last time I believe you can be different. If you fail, if you choose wrong again, you lose us forever." He should have been terrified, should have felt the weight of that ultimatum crushing him. Instead, he felt free, because she was giving him a chance. One more shot at being the man she'd married, the father his sons deserved. "I won't fail," he promised. "You better not." She smiled then. Small, fragile, but real. "Because those 3 boys in there, they already love you, already think you hung the moon, and I—" She paused, swallowed. "I never stopped loving you, Min-jae. Even when I hated you. Even when I ran. You've always been it for me." His throat closed. "Soo-min, so, don't make me regret this. Don't make me watch you become your father. Don't break our sons' hearts by choosing power over them." "I won't," he whispered. "I swear." She searched his face, then nodded and kissed him. Soft, gentle, full of 6 years of longing and loss and hope. When she pulled back, there were tears on both their faces. "Come on," she said. "Let's go tell our sons their daddy's staying." 3 months later, Min-jae stood in the kitchen of a modest house in a quiet suburb 30 minutes from the city. Not a penthouse, not a fortress, just a home. 4 bedrooms, a backyard, neighbors who waved and asked about the weather. Normal, beautifully, impossibly normal. He was making breakfast. Pancakes, the boy's favorite. Soo-min had left early for her new job. She'd insisted on working, on having her own life beyond being his wife. And Min-jae had morning duty. "Daddy!" Taemin ran into the kitchen. "Ji-hoon says I can't have chocolate chips because I'll get hyper, but you said I could have whatever I want." "I said whatever is reasonable," Min-jae corrected. "And your brother is right. You get hyper. But Daddy—" "But nothing. You can have chocolate chips at dinner if you eat your vegetables." Taemin pouted but accepted defeat. Smart kid. Knew when to pick his battles. The other 2 appeared, Daejung carrying a book as always. Ji-hoon already dressed for school, responsible and serious. "Morning, Daddy," they chorused. Min-jae's chest warmed. 3 months, and he still wasn't used to it. The casual way they called him Daddy. The trust in their eyes. The way they'd integrated him into their lives like he'd always been there. "Morning, boys. Wash up. Breakfast in 5. They scattered, a whirlwind of noise and energy and life. Min-jae plated the pancakes and allowed himself a moment of gratitude. This was what he'd fought for. What he'd almost lost. What he'd do anything to protect. His phone buzzed. Taeho. "Morning, boss. Quick update. The Tanaka deal closed. Clean. No complications. And the restructuring of the Western operations is complete. We're out of the trafficking business entirely now." "Good." Min-jae flipped another pancake. "What about the Lee conspirators?" "Last 3 turned themselves in yesterday. Federal prosecutor is pleased. Looks like your cooperation will result in reduced scrutiny on legitimate operations." It had taken months. Months of careful maneuvering, of dismantling his father's dirtiest enterprises, of making deals with federal agencies, of transforming a criminal empire into something that operated in the gray areas of legality instead of the pitch black. Was it perfect? No. Was he completely clean? Absolutely not. But he was trying, and that had to count for something. "Anything else?" Min-jae asked. "Your father's old associates are still grumbling. Think you've gone soft, but they're not stupid enough to move against you. Not after what happened to Lee. Let them grumble, as long as they stay in line." "Will do." "Oh, and boss, Ji-hoon's soccer game is at 4. You said you wanted reminders." Min-jae smiled. "Thanks, Taeho. Anytime." He ended the call just as the boys returned. They ate together, talked about school, about Daejung's upcoming book report, about Taemin's art project, about Ji-hoon's soccer team making playoffs. Normal conversations, normal problems, normal life. Min-jae cherished every second. After breakfast, he drove them to school, walked them to their classrooms, got 3 hugs and 3 "love you daddies" that made his entire world feel right, Then he drove to the office, the legitimate one, where he ran legal businesses and made clean money and built something his sons wouldn't be ashamed of. The empire still existed. He still had power, still had influence, still made decisions that affected thousands of lives. But he wasn't his father anymore. Wasn't the man who chose violence first, who solved problems with blood. He was becoming something different, something better, something his sons could be proud of. That evening he sat in the bleachers at Ji-hoon's soccer game. Soo-min beside him, Tae-min and Dae-jung eating snacks and cheering wildly every time their brother touched the ball. Ji-hoon scored a goal, turned immediately to the stands, found Min-jae, grinned huge and bright, and Min-jae felt his heart break and rebuild simultaneously. "He's so happy," Soo-min said softly. "They all are. You did that. We did that," Min-jae corrected. "You kept them safe, raised them right. I'm just trying to be worthy of what you built." She took his hand, laced their fingers together. "You're doing more than trying. You're succeeding. Some days are harder than others. Some days I want to handle things the old way, quick, brutal, final. But you don't. But I don't," he agreed. "Because every time I'm tempted, I think about coming home to them, to you, and I remember what matters." The game continued. Ji-hoon's team won. The boys celebrated, demanded ice cream. Min-jae said yes, because he'd learned that saying yes to small joys was its own kind of power. Later, much later, after the boys were asleep and the house was quiet, Min-jae and Soo-min sat on the back porch under the stars. "Do you miss it?" she asked. "The old life, the absolute power, the fear and respect." He considered the question honestly. Sometimes, it was simpler, more direct. You had a problem. You eliminated it. No complications. No compromises. But then I wouldn't have this. Wouldn't have them. Wouldn't have you looking at me like I'm someone worth loving instead of someone to fear. He pulled her closer. "So no, I don't miss it enough to go back." She rested her head on his shoulder. "Good answer. I mean it, Soo-min. This, us, the boys, this life. This is my empire now. The only one that matters. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." They sat in comfortable silence. Two people who'd survived the impossible. Who'd chosen each other despite every reason not to. Who'd built something beautiful from the wreckage of everything they'd destroyed. "I love you," Soo-min whispered. "I love you too," Min-jae replied. "Always have. Always will." And for the first time in his entire life, Min-jae understood what true power felt like. Not the throne. Not the empire. Not the fear or the blood or the control. Just this. Just love. Just family. Just home. 2 years later, Min-jae stood in the backyard watching his sons play. They were 7 now. Taller. Smarter. Growing into themselves in beautiful ways. Ji-hoon still serious. Still protective. The natural leader. Dae-jung still quiet. Still thoughtful. Reading books far above his grade level. Tae-min still wild. Still funny. The heart of their little family. "Daddy, watch this," Tae-min called. Then attempted a cartwheel. Failed spectacularly. Laughed anyway. Min-jae applauded. "Beautiful. Perfect form." "You're lying." "I'm being supportive. There's a difference." Soo-min emerged from the house carrying lemonade. Pregnant. 6 months. A little girl this time. They'd found out last month and the boys were already arguing about names. She was glowing. Happy. More beautiful than Min-jae had ever seen her. "They're going to destroy the garden," she observed. "Let them. Gardens grow back. Childhood doesn't." She smiled. Kissed his cheek. Settled into the chair beside him. Taeho called. Said the quarterly reports look good. Profits up. Legal troubles minimal. Good. He also said there's a situation in Miami that needs your attention. Some old rival making noise. Min-jae sighed. The empire never completely disappeared. There were always fires to put out, problems to solve, threats to neutralize. But now he handled them differently, with lawyers and negotiators instead of guns and fear. It took longer, cost more, frustrated him sometimes, but he came home every night without blood on his hands, and that was worth everything. "I'll handle it Monday," he said. "This weekend belongs to them." "You've changed so much," Sumin said softly. "Sometimes I look at you and can't believe you're the same man who chose the Empire over us." "I'm not the same man. That person died the night I almost lost you. Almost lost them." He watched his sons play. "This person, the father, the husband, he's who I should have been all along. You're being too hard on yourself. You were trying to protect us the only way you knew how, by becoming what I hated, by choosing power over presence, by believing control mattered more than connection." He shook his head. "I was wrong, and I'm grateful every day that you gave me another chance to get it right." Ji-hoon ran over, sweaty, grass-stained, perfect. "Daddy, can we go to the park tomorrow? Mommy said you have to say yes because it's family day." "Mommy is very smart." "Yes, we can go to the park." "And get ice cream?" "Always with the ice cream." "Please?" Min-jae laughed. "Yes, park and ice cream, but only if you finish your homework tonight." "Deal!" Ji-hoon ran back to his brothers to deliver the news. "You're a pushover," Sumin teased. "I'm a father. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Absolutely. Pushovers are weak. Fathers are strategic. I'm investing in their happiness so they'll take care of me when I'm old." "Very strategic." "I thought so." She laughed. The sound filled the air like music, like home. The sun began to set, golden light painting everything soft and warm. The boys chased fireflies. Sumin rested her hand on her swollen belly. Min-jae watched his family and felt something he'd never experienced in his father's empire. Peace. Real, genuine, uncomplicated peace. "What are you thinking?" Sumin asked. "That I spent 32 years chasing the wrong throne, building the wrong empire, measuring power in all the wrong ways. And now I know better. Power isn't control. It's not fear or violence or sitting on top of a criminal organization." He took her hand. "Power is this: coming home to people who love you, raising children who trust you, building a life that matters beyond money and influence." That's very philosophical for a former crime lord. "Former?" He raised an eyebrow. "I still run things, you know. Just differently. Legally, mostly. Mostly counts." She laughed again, then grew serious. "Do you have regrets? About how we got here? About the choices you made?" Min-jae considered the question. The honest answer. "I regret hurting you. Regret the time I lost with them. Regret becoming my father even for a moment." He paused. "But I don't regret where we ended up. Don't regret fighting to keep you. Don't regret learning to be better. Even though it almost cost you everything? Especially because it almost cost me everything. You can't appreciate light without experiencing darkness. Can't understand what matters until you almost lose it." He pulled her closer. "I almost lost you. Almost lost them. And that terror. That absolute soul-destroying fear. That's what saved me. Made me realize the Empire meant nothing if my family wasn't in it." Sumin wiped her eyes. "You're going to make me cry. Pregnancy hormones. Shut up." He kissed her. Gentle. Sweet. Full of 2 years of healing and forever of promises. "I love you," he whispered against her lips. "You and those 3 wild boys, and the little girl who's going to have me completely wrapped around her tiny finger the second she's born. Only the little girl? The boys already own me. I'm just acknowledging reality." She smiled. "Good. Because they're about to tackle you." Min-jae turned, just as 3 small bodies launched themselves at him. They went down in a heap of laughter and grass stains and pure joy. And lying there, covered in his sons, his wife laughing, the sun setting on another perfect day, Min-jae realized something profound. He'd spent his entire life building empires. Criminal ones, legitimate ones. Organizations that controlled cities and moved millions, and made powerful men bow. But this moment right here, This was his greatest achievement. 3 boys who called him Daddy without fear. A wife